All right, welcome back. We are COM229, Web Application Development, and it's week 3, part 7, Express and Heroku. So from a technical requirements perspective at this point, we have just split off our header, footer, and main navigation into partial files. And we've also need to understand what the flexibility that we're going to get is when we do that, and we split them off. We have flexibility when using different templates. What are we doing with this video? We're going to push our site to Heroku, which is the cloud provider we're going to be talking about. And at the end of the video, you should have all you need to host your site live. Okay, let's do this thing. So we're starting off with project week 3, where we were in the last video. And the one thing to put it up in Heroku, let's talk a little bit about what Heroku is. So here's Heroku, but let me just take you to the, we'll do an incognito mode so you can see what Heroku looks like on the front page. So we're going to go into a new, let's try that again. So a new incognito window, and if I type in the words Heroku, it's going to take us here. So this is what you'd have to do. You'd have to sign up for Heroku. You can sign up for free. So there's no cost to using the service. It's a cloud-based service, and it's equivalent, let's say, in some ways to Microsoft Azure, Google Platform, AWS, Amazon. It's kind of like that. And what this does for us, it's a little bit easier to connect with Heroku. It's a very popular service to use when you want to create cross-platform applications, like for example on both desktop and mobile. So we can host some stuff on Heroku, and this is a perfect place to host things like Node.js applications at a very low cost. And yes, in this case, it's going to be free. So please sign up if you haven't had a chance to already. When you're signed up for Heroku, you're going to get a screen that looks somewhat like this. I want to create a new site for my application, so I'm going to make a new app. Inside the new app area, it has to be a unique name, so I'm going to call it COMP229 in the fall 2020 semester, and it's week 3. That's the app, okay? And notice the region is United States or Europe. Obviously, United States makes more sense since we're closer. We're going to click Create App. You'd have to make your own unique name. It's going to be different than mine. Now, there are 3 methods of deployment. I can either go through Heroku Git using Heroku CLI, and you can download the Heroku tool belt to do that, or Github, or some kind of container registry. I'm going to opt for Github. We haven't done GitHub in one of these videos yet, but I'm going to do it in this one so that I can put it up on Heroku. Great. So let's do that. So first, let's make a Git repository, this thing into a Git repository. And the way to do that is, I'm just going to clear the screen. I'm going to say Git init. And what this is going to do is create a hidden.git folder. The next command is git add dot. It's going to add everything into our staging area. That's everything, including our node modules and so on. Git typically doesn't like this node module stuff, especially Heroku. So let's back up a step. We could certainly do that, but I think what might be better is if we remove that and just start that over one more time. One more time. Let's get rid of this .git folder. We're going to right-click, and if you make a mistake like this, is totally fine. So we're going to kind of go here, right-click, and delete the hidden.git folder. And let's try that again. So what we're missing to not put Git node modules up online, and there's some challenge for this, okay? Because we're using node modules not just for Node, but also for jQuery and for a bunch of other applications. If this doesn't exist, then we're not going to have any styling, and you're going to see that later on. We'll go through this in a second. So first, let's deploy without GitHub, without node modules, and then we'll talk about this. So we want to make a new file in here called Git Ignore. .git Ignore. And our Git Ignore file should basically list the things we want to ignore. We're going to ignore node modules. Okay, that's kind of the thing we're going to ignore here. So node modules will not be included in our Git repository. We can also include empty folders in this. So let's say, for example, on the other side, instead of Git Ignore, you can also use a Git Keep if you wanted to have folders that were empty, let's say, if we had any empty folders. For example, assets has images, but images is empty. And this images folder, if you wanted it to be up on GitHub, as an example, to retain the structure, then you need to add a file called Git Keep. Okay, so Git Keep kind of does that, so that way it can keep the structure. We have something in content, we have something in scripts. And for the most part, I think we're pretty good, but we need to add that structure in order for us to keep it up on GitHub. Okay, cool. So now that we're ready, let's try that again. So clear, git init, git add dot. Notice that it's much smaller, so we don't include all of node modules. And then git commit -m. We're going to call this initial commit. So we've added everything into our local GitHub repository. And now what we want to do is we want to put it up on GitHub. We need to create a repository up on GitHub. I'm going to go into my Git account. So GitHub. It'll be private. So you guys will have to do this on your own. So new repository, we're going to call this, it's going to be private. And we're going to say that it is comp 229 and the fall 2020 semester, and it's week 3. Okay, there it is. And then create repository. Once I have this, I can take these last 2 lines of code, copy them, go back to Visual Studio Code, and right-click, and then press enter. And what that'll do is, everything goes well, we'll push everything up onto GitHub. Now, if you've never done, or you've never used GitHub before, then what might happen is you may need to log in for the first time. Okay, that's what may have to happen. But for the most part now, we're connected to GitHub. And if you go back to GitHub and you refresh, you can see that on your GitHub, you may have a structure that looks like this. Okay, warning, you need to have your server.js on the root of your folder to put it up on Heroku. All right, if you don't, then it won't work. The next thing is we have to modify our package.json file. So package.json right now, it has some basic things, but a couple things that are missing are required on up on Heroku. One of them is the engine that we're going to use to put things up live. Okay, that's a really important piece. If we don't do that, then what's going to end up happening is Heroku won't know how to specify the type of engine that we're going to use for Node and NPM. It's going to try and do it, and it won't know what to do. So let's do that next. So again, the way to do that is we're going to add another object underneath scripts in our package.json file. Okay, so let's do that. So the first thing is going to be engines. All right. And then under engines, we're going to have Node, and we're going to specify the engine version here in a second. And then we're also going to have NPM and specify the NPM version in here. Okay, so those are the 2 things. So good thing to do is to check what your version is. So as of this recording, if I go node -- version, then you can see that I'm version 14.6.0. I think anything greater than 14 is okay. So we'll try something like a node version, a node version that's greater than, let's say, 14.0. Okay? So that's something you can put in there. And if that's too great, and again, the one thing also to check is, because it's going to use standard versions. If I go to Node.js, you can see that our long-term support version is 12.18.3. Let's put in 12. something instead, right? Because that'll be more safe in terms of how we're going to use it. So 12.00. Anything greater than 12, I think we're going to be okay. What about NPM? Our npm version is 6.14. I think anything greater than 6 is going to be okay. 6.0.0 I think is going to be okay for npm. And so what this does is it specifies our engines. All right, so now that we have that and we've specified our engines requirement, we've modified our package.json, so that's a modification you can see here. We have to put this up on GitHub. So that's the first piece. We don't have to specify a repository. We don't have to specify a repository. And if we were to do a npm init again, I'm just going to show you this for a second. So if I do an npm init, it's going to take us through the package wizard again. But this time, instead of version 0.0.0, let's put 0.0.1. We can specify this. So description, we should put a description. Demo app for comp 229. Entry point is app.js. That is actually wrong. I'm going to fix that in a second. Actually, let's just copy it, skip out of that, and try it again. Sorry. So its package name is week 4. We're going to not call it week 4. We're going to say comp 229. I don't know why it says week 4. Comp 229, and it's going to be dash fall 2020 week 3 is what I want to put in here. 0.0.1. Description is demo app for comp 229 week 3. Entry point is index.js. That's important to notice. Git repository is going to update. This is important too. Keywords we don't care about. Author, I'm going to put my name. Actually, well, yeah, you have to put a name. That's me. License, and we want to say yes. So what it does is it updates our structure a little bit. It doesn't change anything else, but it did add this piece, which we need for Heroku. Right. It also added a dev dependencies area as an example there, and a main. Right. So these are all important things to get going, and especially when it comes to using Heroku. All right. So this is part 1. So we've changed our package.json. Let's put this up on GitHub. So git add dot git commit -m. We'll say we updated package.json for Heroku. Okay, git push. That'll push things up on GitHub, and that'll be the latest version now on GitHub, on my GitHub. Fantastic. Now that we have our GitHub updated, and again, if you can see that if we go to here, let's go to GitHub, refresh, we can see that we have 2 commits now. And we have our latest package.json up here. This is important in order for us to get things ready for Heroku. Okay, next, I want to go to Heroku now and connect. So we can see that there are 3 deployments. So first we made an app, comp229 f2020 week 3, but now we have to click GitHub for deployment. It's going to ask you for authorization for the first time, but once you authorize GitHub or Heroku to access your GitHub, you'll have a list that looks something like this. And you can choose any organization that's part of your, that you've approved to connect, okay? All right, and it says, if you're missing an organization, ensure Heroku dashboard has team access. And the way to do that is if you go here, you can see, okay? Let's say I can grant different organizations access if I want to, right? No problem. So these are all 2020 week 3. And I'm going to click connect. When I do that, Heroku is going to connect with GitHub, and it's going to say, okay, we want to deploy. All right, so we say where it says enable automatic deploys. I'm going to click this button. And then I'm going to click on deploy branch. It's going to deploy the master branch. So what it's going to do, it's going to deploy manually. And you can see what it's doing. It says push rejected, failed to compile Node.js app. Okay, so this is important, right? And it tells you why it did that. So it says error, invalid semantic version 12.00. There is no 12.00 that it can find. So it's having problems finding this. It found the engine's version this, but it didn't find, well, actually we didn't get that far. So this is an example of where it failed an upload. So 12 not supported, right? So let's go and do an earlier version of that deploy. So again, let's go back to our package. I want to show you this because sometimes what happens is we get really ambitious with the stuff that we want, and of course it doesn't work. So let's go in something earlier. Let's put something like 10, version 10 of Node, 10 dot, let's say, 10 and up. I would say that's a pretty good version. And so maybe 12 isn't supported yet by them, but 10 is. So save, and again we'll put it up on GitHub. So we'll say git add dot git commit -m adjusted node server version for Heroku. And then git push. Yes, that pushes up. Done. And then we can go back here and try again. Deploy branch. And let's see what happens now. So it's going up. It's going to look at 10.0 and it says push rejected to compile. All right. And this is something that happens. Again, we can see that it says invalid semantic version 10.00.0. And I think that it has to be a valid version. It can't be just a random number. And this is why I'm getting rejected here. It could be something like that you may need to put an actual version. So let's take a look at some Node versions up there to see other downloads. Let's see some versions. So the latest LTS long-term support version is 12.18.3. We may have to put an actual version up there that is reasonable. Okay. And that's fine, 12.18.3. So let's try that. So 12.18.3. This is important, guys. And that's why you can see that this is not working because I'm not putting it in. Let's try that again. So save. And again, I'm just going to push adjusted node server version again. Right? Git add. How about git add dot first? And then we'll push up to GitHub. Hopefully that will work, right? Again, this is just part of what we need to do here. Let's go back to Heroku and see if that is going to work here. So deploy branch. Okay, now we're good. So it needs to be an actual working version of Node. You can see what's happening here. It says installing dependencies, added 58 packages. Huge. Like, imagine doing that. Build success, it says, and it's going to continue to build and compress. You can watch the build process right here. 28.6 megabytes. And then it gives us a thing to view. So if everything goes well, we can click the view button, and we should see our site up online. And there we go. So then if I go to all these other links, we should be good to go. We can see all of our pages up on Heroku. Okay, pretty cool. But notice what happened, right? And this is the key. The key is make sure you have your engine version correct. It's got to be something that's reasonable. It can't be just a random number. I tried it, but it didn't work. Looks like NPM was okay, but anything that from a Node perspective has to be a version that's valid. Okay. But you need these two things in here in order for it to work, and you need to definitely put in the entry point for your app. If you don't, then Heroku won't know where to start and won't know how to deploy. So that's it for this video. We've put things up online, and you can access our site now at comp229 F2020 week 3 herokuapp.com if you wanted to try it out. All right, in the next video, when we come back to Heroku, and it'll be probably closer to week 6, I'm going to kind of connect Heroku to our to MongoDB, which we're going to talk about starting next week. And it's a bit of a difference in terms of the way we do things with Heroku. So I'll see you in the next video.